What is up, everyone? My name is Kyle, here with Danny, and we are talking House of X, issue number 4. Are you excited? Because I am excited because I want to talk about momentous Hickman moments. You know,
Ooh,
uh,
good stuff.
I'm talking to me, my Galactus, when that was uttered. I'm talking the moment when the Illuminati, after destroying millions of universes, just decided, I'm not going to destroy, let's not destroy any universes anymore. Black Panther was like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm going home. Mr. Fantastic was like, I'm going to go with my family. And then the universe gets destroyed, and everyone looks behind them, and Namor's there, and it's like, you bitches need to pick up the slack. And you're just like, damn, Namor.
Those are enjoyable parts about like the build up to Secret Wars is that like they really brought the momentous like turn of okay, everything's falling apart, the chaos is happening, this is the end times, they're beginning now, and Hickman's good at writing that kind of stuff, especially like you were saying, like Galactus to me, and like his run with Fantastic Four when like
Oh,
the
yeah.
Reeds started dying, when the Council fell apart because all the Celestials were invading, or towards the end when you had the battles of like the Four Kingdoms. Oh, and then like the last of the Reeds were fighting to see who could come out on top. Oh yeah, Hickman
Oh,
really
so
knows how to
good.
build these like moments of just everything's falling apart in the storyline. Characters are going to die, and it's going to be one hell of an action movie.
Yes, indeed. And I mention these moments because in this issue, I feel like this issue is one of these moments where I'm gonna go back and I'll be like, this is a Hickman moment. It's not like a crazy like, oh snap, I didn't see that coming moment, because you kind of see everything coming. It slowly builds up, but the whole time you're just enjoying the ride and you're just like, damn, the whole time on this so we're still continuing with the mission from last week when we were talking about House of X issue number 3.
No more mutants! No more mutants.
And we left off where I called her Miss Dr. Science Lady. Her name is Dr. Gregor, right? Dr. Gregor, but I've been calling her Dr. Science Lady. So they destroyed the X-Men ship. And that's where we left off last week in the mission, and this week we're continuing with the mission. So you excited? You excited for this mission? Because shit goes down. Shit goes down in this one.
Things go down. Things go down off panel in between transitioning just into this mission because it's pretty rough. Like you kind of see like it end with what's going on, and then they cut to like as the X-Men are putting themselves back together, and you get brought up to speed on like deaths of certain characters. Things have started to unfold.
Yes.
Wolverine has started to unfold, literally.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
So
it's
like
a great transition.
it's crazy. It just like starts off with like it doesn't hold any punches. So but it starts with essentially we're back at Earth. Magneto and Charles is talking to Trinary and what's her name? What is her
Talking
name? Uh Storm. I had a brain
oh, you're
fart
talking
for a
about when
second.
he's doing
Yes.
the mind meld where they're trying to do their long distance
Yes.
psychic communication. That was an interesting tactic where they're like, how do we? Oh, we'll just make a psychic like router version of a repeater, and we'll piggyback our psychic signals so we could shoot out into space and boost
Yeah.
this range. He's like, I'm now communicating with you in 5G psychic telepathic long range.
Yeah, it's great. And it's called, I believe they called it the Sleeping Giant, which is a device that connects to detect mother molds, and it connects to like SETI, the SETI satellites, the Arecibo satellite, the one in Peru that was in Contact, that movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
so
forgot about that.
they're kind of like piggybacking on all those to extend and broadcast essentially Charles's telepathic signal to Jean Grey, and then they project it using Storm's water powers, which is kind of weird. Visually, it looks amazing, but it's entirely pointless, right? You should just be able to project this into your minds, right?
I feel like they wanted to. Well, okay, so this is House. So it's done by I believe Pepe Larraz, right? He's
Yep.
the artist for this. Okay, so
Yes.
yeah, because so RB Sylvia does Powers. So there's yeah, it's Pepe Larraz, and he kind of I think really took liberty here to try to add in the interpretation. So given what the characters were in the situation, he probably looked at what could be done with the powers on hand, and I feel like this conduit system is much more a writing or an artistic device and less of a plot device.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, like visually, it's beautiful because it's
Exactly.
badass. It projects like
Exactly.
essentially a mold of Jean Grey's face, and it's communicating with Charles at the moment. And essentially, we're seeing from Charles' perspective, but essentially, Jean Grey's projecting what's happening right now, and we cut back to what happened after the explosion. And this is where we see some craziness. So Jean tells the professor of the explosion. Essentially, she's like, Archangel, Husk, down, dead. From the start, they are gone. Nightcrawler is pretty much dead. He has internal bleeding, so he's gonna die regardless.
On his way out.
He's on his way out. He's useful still, but he's on his way out. And then you see Wolverine's arm melted off, still hanging by the bone, just like this savage, like, and it's great. This is what I want to see in my X-Men. Is this like they're in the middle of conflict, in the middle of battle, like damage has been conflicted, like major damage has been done.
It was quite impressive.
Yeah, and what was your thoughts going into this when you just go to from Charles to Jean Grey back onto the master mold or mother mold,
Well,
and you're just like, hey, half our team's down or part of our team's down, pretty much, and this is what we're working with so far.
it was quite shocking. Like I was taken aback instantly because right when you get the transition, you're brought up to speed on some really intense deaths where you're like, okay, well, Archangel died off screen like instantly. So what went down had to have been something serious because if Archangel's dead, there's no way Hickman's just throwing that aside where he's like, no, this is a serious moment right here. Like they're in over their head. This is the level that you're fighting. We're taking Archangel out right away to show you that like everyone here is at jeopardy be taken off the board.
Yeah,
He's
they're
no
not playing
slouch.
around.
He's
Yeah.
no such. Maybe Angel. I mean, if this was Angel, I would be like, okay, well, Angel
Sure.
died. That was like, why did
Sure.
he even go? They just needed his money. Like, Warren Worthington is just their accountant in like the earlier part of the X-Men years, but when they
Yeah.
rebooted him into an Archangel, or should I say, upgraded him into Archangel, a lot of people don't like him, but I thought he was a much needed evolution for Warren to become a more applicable character in like the mainstream. They were like, how can we give him like a Wolverine palette? Oh, here we go. Now he's awesome. People are gonna love him again. And I'm like, all right, it works. Because everyone enjoys Wolverine, so that was a good transition. And for them to kill him off because he's supposed to be good at like being very regenerative too. Like his blood in like the later part of the 2000s was an evolutionary step that he took that could be used to heal other X-Men or other people. His blood has a lot of healing properties.
Mhm.
So if he's outright dead, like that meant okay, the X-Men are not far. The rest of the X-Men are not far behind.
Yeah.
And look at what you get with Husk here, where I was just going over in last time we talked about her. Like she never really gets her due, and her powers are really cool. And it was she was killed off screen.
Straight up.
Why didn't she just like pull her skin off to react to it and like survive? Like I expect her to survive better than like someone like Mystique. Like if Mystique outlived you, then damn. like I get it if Mystique was trying to set you up and she outlived you, like that's different because she has an idea of what's going on. But like if a catastrophe hits, like and later on you'll see like they kind of illustrate it like in coming in the rest of this chapter, like when things get difficult for Mystique and it's beyond her control, she's just dead. Like she's off the board quick. So like it was crazy for them to cut back and both Warren and Husk are dead now, and you see like the rest of the X-Men kind of hanging on by like just tatters.
Yeah, it's kind of like they just got the wind knocked out of them out of nowhere, and they're like, "All right, now start, now begin. This is when the mission starts." And essentially, everyone's connected to this Wi-Fi router network, psychic network, and Magneto chimes in and says, "Can you complete the mission?" And Cyclops is yes, of course we have to. And it cuts to
It doesn't
Wolverine.
matter. We're this deep into it now. We got to keep going.
We're
Yeah.
deep into this, and essentially he says, "What does he said? We're playing for blood here," which is essentially like we're done. Well, this is it. This is our last stand, but we got to complete the mission, more or less.
Yeah, they already knew they weren't coming back alive. And real quick to tangent, like, do you get kind of a feeling here though with this though, like everything? I know the timelines are hard to tell, and there's a lot of mystery going on, but you see that like. And I know they bring it up later on and how they fix it, but didn't you get a feeling when this started going off and like people started dying, important people, you were like, how solid is this and how real is this though? It's like it was shocking, but hasn't comics with the way they kind of recycle the ability to just kill off people and like use it as like an event and then like reverse engineer it in the next coming event or in like the new chapter or like an annual or something. Like this kind of moment was shocking, but I almost feel like if it would have happened like say in like the early 2000s, like around Grant Morrison's time, like or even like the Joss Whedon, if it was during like the Joss Whedon run, if this started happening, I would be like, oh man, this is crazy. Like these people are probably gone forever, like or for like maybe a decade, you know, proper gone. Like when people would die earlier in the comics, and you probably wouldn't see them for like 20 years. You know, like some of the more golden era, like golden age, like comic characters. So, did you kind of have like a disconnect to this? Like you were shocked, but in the back of your head, like, did you feel like that instantly? That was like kind of a light that came on.
Well, I'm dead inside, so
Instantly, you're just jaded about it. You're just like,
but I'm also so like starved for like good X-Men that I'm just like, yeah, these are like the moments that I want. This is like I know it's not going to be a finite moment. I know things are going to go back to the status quo, but this is a moment that reminds me of an X-Men that I once loved and once adored as a child. And
oh
I'm
yeah,
thinking, yeah, and that's so yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, of course, it's gonna go back and like you don't have that like that you used to have back in the day for most of the part for most things. I don't really have that these days
yeah.
too much when reading stuff. I don't know if it's just because I'm older, wiser. I'm seeing patterns of storytelling.
That's true. That's my whole point into this is that like eventually you get kind of it becomes everything starts to become kind of tropey or like a motif or like it feels like they're resting on cliches too much. But
Sure.
the beauty to this and what we discussed earlier is that the fact that it adds the element of Hickman's peril. Like when he writes peril in his comics, when things are reaching a sense of urgency, it expresses itself well in his writing. And you look here and you clearly see like, okay, this feels like a very like accurate perilous situation. So that was the surprising part, is that the peril felt more real, even though the characters can be recycled and replaced. The peril that was actually facing the characters, the heightened sense of urgency, that actually felt real. Like I was like, oh man, like their mission is getting serious. I mean, sure, these characters could be rebooted at any time, but these people right now in this writing feel very genuinely like they're dealing with an emotional moment that doesn't feel too cheapened, and that's the impressive part that really stood out to me the most.
And I would argue this is more Larraz's doing than Hickman's because it's such a visual moment that it impacts you. So like we're talking about how it's so impactful, but nothing could do it justice than looking at this panel because you're just like, damn.
Yeah, that especially that Wolverine part where he's like putting his arm back together, like
yeah, he's just like
really
holding
good.
His arm.
This is traditional. This is the traditional Wolverine that I like, where they really play around with his healing factor. That's what I mentioned earlier in the other discussion that we had previously. It was Wolverine getting pushed to that limit and then putting himself back together. Like, let's continue with the mission. I love that.
It's great.
That gets me hyped because then I'm like, yes, this is like back to original like Dark Phoenix run Wolverine, where he's like, all right, now it's my turn to like clean up the board and show you like, you know, Hellfire people how I roll. He just takes on the whole Hellfire Club by himself. I love that so much. I feel like we're getting that Wolverine right here.
I'm excited. You didn't see Bendis do that shit.
He's in it, but given Bendis's early exploits, I give him a pass.
Oh,
Later
yeah,
on,
for sure.
his nonsense. But I mean, like, he has what? Didn't he do like Shield with Hickman? I think he did one of the runs. Like he co-authored something with Hickman. There was like something like either Hickman's Shield run or Secret Warriors, something around that time, and that was good. But then, like, who knows? Is even Hickman has his faults, but per capita on record overall, I say Hickman's pretty flawless. I mean, no one can write everything great, and we pointed at Marvel editorial to being a lot of his downfall. Bendis, not so much. I feel like with Bendis, it doesn't even matter what Marvel editorial does. He comes up with some really wacky ideas that don't fit. He doesn't necessarily care too much. I've heard him like talk openly about how retconning things is not a problem to him. Like he said, canon is just something that gets in the way all the time for him. And I feel like that's an excuse. If you're a good enough writer, you can play with canon like how Hickman's done here, and the story will be phenomenal because of it. Because everybody wins. You're like, oh, it's a good written story, and the fans feel appreciated. No one wants to read something for 30 years and just get shit on for reading it. That's not how you sell comics. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, Bendis seems to want to be a TV writer, not a comic writer sometimes. And
Correct, 100%.
The way like he was like pumping up like when what was the show? Fuck, what's the character he created, Marvel show? Part of the Defenders. Can't think of her name right now. Drawing a blank.
Miss Marvel?
No. Defenders, yeah.
Oh, the Defenders. Oh, Jessica Jones?
Jessica Jones. Like, he was pumping that super hard. Like, I think he's like, he seems to want to be like, or his style of writing even. Because I wrote he wrote a book on writing, like writing comics. I wrote his book. He even uses screenwriting software. And
oh, wow.
he has because he's a character-driven storyteller, which is very television-oriented. They're all character-driven. So, like, he seems to want to be a TV writer more so than a comic book writer sometimes, if I feel personally.
Yeah, like, and very, like, trope, like not even tropey, like a cliche TV book writer. Like he seems like he loves the procedural approach of television by like a more technical approach where you're like, oh, this is how you technically put down a TV show and produce it and make it a thing. I'm going to do it by that kind of packing order. He's not experimental enough in a way where it feels like it's artistic. He'll do wacky things, but he'll always stay in the confines of like, okay, you know how it's going to end. You know how it'll start off and you know how it'll finish.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. It's I honestly I don't like to shit on Bendis, but I will do it because he deserves it. That's the only reason why.
You read any of his Superman run at all?
I've heard like a lot of weird things already coming from it, and I know it's just going to be he wants to put his stamp on something. That's what it is now. Every time he comes into it, he just like, this doesn't look enough like something I would have written, so I'm going to change it and make it look like my own little Bendis creation instead of like just trying to play with the storyline. I mean, I imagine it's going to be fun if I read it. I imagine it would be different and unique in a way where I could appreciate that. But in the end, I'm like probably going to guess like, okay, I know where this is going, Bendis. I know where you're taking this. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, it's what I expected. Maybe I didn't have to read it, but whatever. I'll take it. But yeah, this is unique world we're in now with Hickman here. Like he seems to be taking the story down a road where it's radical and you could do a lot of retcons, you could change it, but all the history and the mythos that was built over time, it still connects. It still plays a pivotal part, and it doesn't feel like it was just thrown because it was in Hickman's way. Like it doesn't feel like it was thrown out just because it was in his way,
Yeah.
It's really interesting transition, and the story, oh man, it takes off from this point.
Yeah, so it takes off. Go ahead.
The aftermath, because we get the aftermath of like them putting themselves back together, and they now continue on with their mission, and they still have like a job to do. Because as you said, we get that old school Cyclops of like, I really didn't bring it up enough previously. Like it's really brought out in this chapter that we're getting the unstoppable will Cyclops of like, I have an objective and nothing can veer me from that, and I will do it, even though it may go against the ideals of Xavier, the ideals of morality. I am still going to push myself and this team to the bitter end to make sure this happens, and I will be there leading the charge. And so he dusts himself off, and the story takes off from there. And it's great from that point forward. That's the first thing I'd like to note about this chapter is from this point forward, the story just gets better and better from this page on to the end of this actual issue.
Oh yeah. So yeah, essentially he's all like, so we soldier on, and he's like, yes, we soldier on, and essentially he's like, Nightcrawler, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'll be fine, knowing he's probably not okay. And this is a great moment. Essentially, Nightcrawler essentially takes Cyclops, Wolverine, Mystique, and then himself, and essentially to all like separate quadrants of the master mold, like instantly, and like they're off. The mission's on. They're off and they're going. And we cut to Dr. Science Lady, Dr. Granger. Essentially, she's crying and she's being told like essentially like, I have no like authority here, but one thing I do know is like, if you do nothing, you will die right now, and your husband's death will be in vain. So she pulls herself together, and essentially, as she's pulling herself together, she finds out that she wants to take him out. She wants to take out the ship, but before she says that, she finds out that 2 of the collars have been disconnected from the mother mold. And so shit's going down, like,
in tandem perfectly with what the X-Men are doing. It's
exactly.
Like it's kind of like you're seeing the events of like, because the whole point of Nightcrawler being there is that he's like their point man for like being very strategic and just popping to different locations and getting out real quick. So the fact that he didn't get taken off the table allows the X-Men with ease to still complete their mission essentially. And it's cool. Did you notice in that one panel where they like dropped off Wolverine, like everyone was just like, "Oh fuck!"
Yeah,
and Wolverine's just coming out and like he's just ready to just kill everyone in this room, and they're all just they know it.
He slices
like
the shit
backing on to someone trying to get out of there.
Yeah, he's trying to push back. He's like, "No, fuck this shit."
Yeah, that was a beautiful transition, and right away they're like everything is unfolding, and you get this kind of like emotional kind of manipulation a little bit, but also at the same time it makes sense because they're both there because they have a mission to complete too in their own way. They have their greater, organizational mission that kind of plays to what their whole thing has been about for decades now. So
exactly.
So
they're very experienced. The way they execute it, it's just so flawless and so like quick and swift. Like they instantly take out these 2 callers, like instantly. Like they know their mission, they know what they got to do. It's pretty awesome. Like this is the X-Men doing what they do best.
And they got a lot done in like one panel too. That was the cool part, is that they actually like broke down like what was really the point of the mission by compartmentalizing it with the different X-Men individually, like you said, and that really gave us a lot of like the actual mission playing out just in one panel. You didn't need to spend a whole issue or chapter or like a whole series trying to explain like something like this. Like I know writers that could probably stretch this out for like a whole
this is like 6-issue arc, if not more.
Yeah, they got a hardback or like a hard copy coming out in the Christmas you could pick up. It's the X-Men Mission 1. That's what it'd be called in the cover. But they move quick with these Houses of X and Powers of X. Like the storytelling is very fast, and I like that. And I enjoy that because like it's digestible, but it's swift. And when you get to that transmission of everything getting done, like they respond quick too, and things get even worse, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Oh,
cool. So we go back. They find out that the 2 callers have been disconnected, and we cut to Jean Grey, and Jean Grey's just sending the message back to Krakoa, and essentially, Jean Grey and what's her name? Monet St. Croix.
Or M.
Yeah, M.
Yeah.
Essentially, they get infiltrated, and Monet is just all like, "All right, you need to get out of here." Pushes Jean Grey in a escape pod, and just essentially releases the escape hatch with Jean Grey in it. leaving Monet St. Croix to handle all of this. And what did you know about Monet St. Croix? She's like comes from a royal family. She's like two people. She has this like penance form that we'll see in the next panel or the next page. What else? What else do you know about Monet St. Croix?
Well,
What else can you say about her? Because I can't say too much.
I didn't really know about her in
Yeah.
her original incarnation. I discovered about her later on when she became a more pivotal character in X Factor Investigations, when like Havoc was like the main like protagonist, or the main I guess you could say go-to person for running that organization. Like he had his own team, and underneath him was like Monet. She always went by like M, and then there was like Siren and oh gosh, like a bunch of other people, but or not Havoc, Jamie Madrox, Multiple Man. He was the one who was in charge. So when he was in charge of X Factor Investigations in like probably oh gosh, like maybe 2006 era, like there was this story where she was a part of his team and they went in and she just like decimated like all these sentinels, all these advanced robots, and like was fighting at a level that I had never seen like an X-Men typically fight. Like it felt like I was watching like the Sentry Throwdown, because her powers were never really explained right off of that. I was just like, oh okay, she's got like super strength, she can like fly and do all these other crazy things, and like has some sort of like mild psychic abilities. But then when I actually like dove into her Wikipedia and like read what she could do and like saw that she had like
Everything.
this insane like breakdown of like the things that I wouldn't have expected, and I'm like, how does it even work? Like, how can you perceive mutant auras? Like, what is the? Does they have different colors? Like, and I'm like, what? Why did they give her so many abilities? And then if you dive in her backstory a little more, they kind of flesh that out with like her upbringing, and she had some weird like mental abilities and things that kind of impacted her, and that kind of it felt akin to like how like Legion has like weird powers, because it's a lot of it's like because of his psychological like disabilities and breakdowns. But Monet St. Clair overall just seemed like a really good go-to character for like when you needed a powerhouse, like you wanted to bring in someone who was just like tough as nails but could also do a lot of other unique tool-like abilities and be versatile. And then later on she developed that whole like penance transformation, and that I totally forgot that was even a thing. I remember reading about it somewhere, but I don't remember what its actual origin was. But I remember when it got introduced, it was like one of those things where she was just already really strong. Now she's just like a murder machine. They gave her like how they did with like Archangel. They gave her like the super death upgrade where they're like, she's not murderous enough. Let's just turn that to 11, and there you go.
Yeah,
But
pretty much.
this moment was another one where I kind of felt like, okay, we're not in that future that Magneto was in. She's not fighting a bunch of Nimrods. I feel like Monet St. Clair could take these odds in the comics that I remember her being like brought up in, and the odds of seeing her put against. Like the first one I read with her literally was one where it was just she's fighting massive like amounts of like machinery and different types of robots and actual like death bots, like machines designed to kill on a large scale, like a lot of the stuff that these scientists deal with day to day. I mean, I get that this is one of their more advanced base, but her losing in this fight kind of took me by surprise as well. But so did Archangel dying, so I think maybe this is just another one of those things, and I'll give it to Hickman that he's trying to just move the story on with seriousness, where they're like, yeah, everybody's gonna die no matter how badass they are.
It seems like they're moving really fast. So she has like diamond hardened skin and razor sharp claws, and she's just like mobbing through a bunch of soldiers. But it seems like they're overwhelming her, and that I don't buy. I don't buy it either.
Yeah,
but it's
but
assumed
I mean,
that she's
they might be
overwhelmed.
cyborgs, and they might be like, have advanced weaponry and all that stuff. So I mean, they're not Choach soldiers probably, but still, at the same time, you're like, I don't know.
It's weird, but she's gone. She's out.
Yeah.
She's done.
Yep.
Death. Another
Right.
one bites the dust.
Yep, right off the board. He was just like,
Yeah.
okay, on to who's left alive.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's what we cut to Cyclops, and he's doing that. He's like, "Who's left?" And he cuts to Mystique. He's like, "Mystique, are you there?" And Mystique, she's walking around, and she sees something. She's like, hold on. And this is a great moment because Dr. Science Lady walks in. And what does Dr. Science Lady do, Danny? What does Dr. Science Lady do?
She just opens up the airlock hatch to that room and jettisons Mystique into space, and Mystique pretty much just goes, well, there's nothing I can do about this. It goes into space and dies.
Yeah.
As I brought up earlier, that how did Mystique even survive up to this point?
Exactly.
What killed Archangel that Mystique got through and survived? But yeah, it was pretty funny. I liked it. I didn't actually hate it. I laughed at it.
I laughed. I laughed.
I was like, I love this. Like, this is great. Like, you can always put like comical effects to it, like as it opens up, like like something out of like America's Funniest Home Videos or something. She just jettisoned down to space. Oh man, it was great. It was one of those kills that almost felt like they were just trying to speed up the death count, and they're like, well, we can take Mystique off the board even faster than like anyone else. We don't have to have a build up or an emotional like tension moment for this death. We can just speed it up. It could have been smaller on the page, and it would have had just as much impact.
A tiny panel.
Yeah, I just like that look at her face. She's just like, then look at her face too, and she's like, I'm fucked. Yeah. Damn it.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And they get a half a page. That's a whole half page of her dying.
Yeah. But yeah, they transition pretty fast with that because you're just like, oh wow, well, we're getting down to like lower numbers of people left for this mission here, and they still haven't completed it. What's gonna happen?
So we cut to Dr. Science Lady, Dr. Gregor, and essentially they're getting the mother mold online, and it's gonna get online in about 30 seconds. I don't know why. It always has a countdown. Why do things have a countdown, Danny? Why don't people just start things and not put them on a countdown?
Because you gotta understand, you just don't get it. And Bendis gets it. You have a procedure. You have a procedure that you have to maintain. You cannot break the order of things, Kyle. We can't think outside the box. Things must be adhered to. And the rules say that if you're going to have some sort of mad science plan that's tied to some sort of mad science device, there has to be a countdown. It is written, and so it is written, and so it shall be.
So say it all.
As the saying goes.
Sure.
But yeah, it was kind of like, okay, well, at least we know that the story has that natural conclusion. There is that point where this is do or die now. Even if the X-Men don't finish their mission and they're not successful, this is happening regardless.
Yeah.
30 seconds, and this shit is gonna pop off.
More or less. And Dr. Science Lady's given a nanite gun. And essentially this gun could disable, it essentially shoots nanites into your body and disables your mutant powers. And when handed this gun, she has like the most evil smirk with mascara running down her face. It's quite beautiful and horrific at the same time. It's like a descent into madness type of.
She's embraced situation. Her dark side, so now it's consumed her, and her dark side level has risen, so her appearance matched it.
You don't understand. My bald, ugly husband died. You don't get it.
I must commit genocide. Always, every time people get mad, everyone wants to commit genocide when they get slighted just a little bit.
It's weird. Yeah, just like the smallest death. A child, a father, a husband, a wife, a lover, anyone just sets them off. It's that quick. Genocide.
As hard as it is to deal with mutants, though, like how often do you see them having some sort of like gun or ray or collar or something that just counters mutant powers? It seems like society has already developed like an array of technology to like just not have to worry about mutants up until this point in the story, and like I feel like they're still having difficulties with it. Like if this lady with a nanite gun can take someone's mutant powers, and she's not even trained in like some sort of combat, how hard is it for the rest of these like militarized units to do it?
Exactly, and they specifically mentioned that that was AIM technology, so they got their hands on AIM technology, and it just shows that just like anything, like weapons, drugs, it gets out. Everyone's gonna get it. Someone's gonna get it. Someone's gonna find it, and it's gonna create chaos.
Yeah, they can never stop the mutants. It's funny. They always have all these like unique types of technology that can deal with it readily, but they seem inept at using it. Like the building blocks are always there to like completely wipe out mutants in almost every like X-Men story, but every human that implements it is like wildly inept at using it. Like nanites, you could put them in their drinking water, and then the X-Men just drink the water, and they're no more. You just have people. They're not mutants anymore. They're just people. But instead they're like, we need advanced genocide in a way you can't understand. We're going to build a spaceship, or we're going to build a space station off of Master Mold's head. We're going to program it with the Mother Mold mainframe, and slowly but surely, hundreds of years from now, we will have Nimrods. You don't understand. This plan is going to work.
It's gonna work. And then robots.
Yeah, it's good times, but that's not even like that's not even a fault I could even see in Hickman's writing. I just feel like that's you could say par for the course in the X-Men mythos.
It's inevitable, if you will.
Just like the AI is inevitable, the human's use of the AI is also inevitable. It's inevitably flawed, I should say.
It's gonna happen. So we go and we cut. Keep in mind, Jean Grey's transmitting all of this to Magneto and Professor X, and it's a weird panel because she's giving her cry face, and then it shows the panel next to it is like her transmitting her cry face to Professor X. It's great.
It was another moment that I kind of got a little like bit of a chuckle, like that, and like Mystique's like instant death, like those both brought me like instant joy, where I'm like, wait, this is. What a weird thing! Like, I almost felt bad for her, where I was like, "Oh no, you're live streaming this. Like, stop crying. Everyone can see it."
Right.
She's like, put it in airplane mode and chill out for a bit. But yeah, it's a weird thing to transmit. I guess it's like maybe that's like the physical manifestation of her empathy, almost. Like that could be it. Like that's why it's so dramatic and necessary in this, where like that's the byproduct of like her empathy being physically represented there. But at the same time, it was very funny. For a sad moment, it read funny. Like the artwork was flawless, but
no, it's great. Yeah,
the juxtaposition was hilarious.
Yeah, it's supposed to mean distress. We get it. They're all distressed. Things are going down, but it made me laugh. I laughed.
It earned some lols. Definitely did.
But essentially, Xavier's like, do whatever it takes. And Jean Grey's like, did you get that, Scott? And Scott's essentially like running around the Master Mold, and he looks off over essentially all the way to the other side, and he sees Wolverine and Nightcrawler, and he says, go. And then this is a great moment. I like this moment. This is a Wolverine Nightcrawler moment. So Wolverine essentially asks, what's on the other side to Nightcrawler, which is pretty cool. He's being very vulnerable. It's like they both know they're going to die, and he's kind of reaching out to Nightcrawler. And it's interesting that you see Wolverine confiding in anyone, let alone Nightcrawler. But it makes sense because he's super religious, so he's like almost asking for like safety, security, maybe a last hope mask. I don't know, but it's pretty. I like that he's just like, hey, what's on the other side?
Yeah, he's like he's accepting that they've kind of reached this like no turning back point, and that they're all probably not gonna get out of this alive anyhow, even if whatever goes down is successful. So they're like, okay, well, this will be the probably paramount moment here where I can just be candid with you. We know each other. We've been friends for a long time. They both joined X-Men in the beginning of Claremont's run.
Jan says.
Yeah, giant size. That was when he was introduced with like Storm and Colossus, like your traditional one, or like kind of
Yeah.
pretty much the
What
building
you
block.
know as the X-Men today, pretty
Yeah,
much.
even you see the echo of that even in the animated series where most of us got
Yes.
started from our time frame. Yeah, so like you get that kind of history welled up in that moment there with their friendship in it, and it kind of feels like a very real moment for Wolverine. And you know what, Nightcrawler kind of always had that, um, I guess,
Almost
tether
like
to Wolverine's more more emotional and real side, more in the moment, like less defensive side. Because Wolverine is a very defensive. I mean, for a guy who's tough as nails, he plays a very strong emotional defense. So it's hard to get through that exterior, and like he puts it all away and just completely like lets Nightcrawler in at that moment, and he's like, "What's on the other side?" And you're just like,
yeah.
fuck, this is some mutant shit. These mutants, they're so human."
Right?
there's almost there's almost some sort of hidden message there. Oh, but I love that. Yeah, I like that. And then it's like I said, it all continues to build from there, and you transition, and it
Yeah.
just keeps going. The build
Yeah.
up.
It's great, and it's great because what happens is Nightcrawler just puts his hand on Wolverine's shoulder, and he says, "When you wake from this earthly slumber, my friend, look for me. I will be there waiting for you." And they teleport
In a
off.
in a bamf.
Yeah,
One
they
last
bamf
bamf.
one last bamf, and they bamf out into the middle of the mother mold, and
By the
uh,
sun.
by the sun. They're literally like miles away from the sun. So Nightcrawler's disintegrated instantly, gone,
It's just
dead.
you could maybe see like the Nightcrawler ash outline of his remnants, but that's, yeah, that's done.
Yeah,
That's well done.
that's well
Or
done.
rare. That's
Oh,
rare, I should say. Yeah.
that's burnt. That's burnt. That's I'm gonna need my money back for this. That's
That's a rare, well done Nightcrawler.
And Wolverine's getting really crispy, but he's hanging in there. He's living and he's struggling and he's fighting. He's fighting the mother mold, and it's getting online right now. It's starting to come online. And it's doing its thing because it's a weird giant sentinel head. It's like it literally is talking. Like I didn't like we were making fun of this. We were making fun of this last week, but it really is talking. It's like we have stolen your fire, and with this we will burn with you all. It is just yelling out into the abyss. It is.
This is great. Oh, I enjoyed it really well. This is very kid because like this is nothing new either. Because when like Hickman writes characters like this reminded me of how he wrote Galactus, right? Like when he fought like or the Mad Celestials, like when the Celestials were mad and they were like trying to deal with Council Reeds and they were spouting off like weird, insane jargon like this. It had that kind of moment to it, but it was in the ineptitude of just being a giant head that couldn't do anything that hit home all the comedy behind it. And you just have Wolverine, who is an outline of Wolverine, like in adamantium down to like his bones, which I'm not sure how that works, but what are you gonna do?
Right.
I don't know how muscles work with like adamantium like casing, but you know, hey, Wolverine's going at it and he's hacking away. This also is very reminiscent of like when he went to capture Nitro. You know, the guy who like caused Civil War and all that stuff, like that one mutant who exploded and caused that big event that led into like the Civil War event. When Wolverine chased him down after all that, he like used his powers on him over and over again, and in the end, like Wolverine was just like his skeleton fighting him. It was pretty awesome. So they took a lot of like a nice little nods to how like badass Wolverine can still be even when he's just like skeleton Wolverine. Because he wrecks this stuff, like everything. Like he's just, as he's burning apart, he's just breaking every bit of what he needs to
Slashing it
do.
up. It's like they're going to the sun. Like he did his job, but he's still slashing away. Still slashing away like
Yeah,
crazy.
nonstop.
It's great.
He's stuck in Berserker Rage mode. He just was like, I got this. I'm switched to kill, and I will kill everything. You will die, tiny piece of metal. You can just see it because like he's like attacking. Like there's a point where he's just slashing through the air at like wires and like debris.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
So actually, going back to when Wolverine and Nightcrawler were talking because Cyclops is literally on the other side of the ship and he could see them from the other side. Do you think he's just watching them as they talk and give this heartwarming speech and like, what are they talking about? What's going on over there? I want to be a part of this conversation. It seems important. It seems important.
Throwing back to like the last, like the dark ages of X-Men or the dark times, Scott Summers during that run, like he had this kind of arrogance and like pettiness that came out in almost every argument, especially between Wolverine and like other more classic characters, the X-Men. So I feel like what he would be saying is he's like, are they talking about me? Like they're talking about me, aren't they? They're fucking talking about me over there. They're talking shit about me. I know Wolverine's talking shit about me. He's probably poisoned Nightcrawler against me. They're both talking shit. It probably is just something like that, where it's just some sort of like level of like his narcissism would bleed into it. But this Cyclops is probably just like, I miss Jean. That's what he's probably thinking about.
Yeah, he's just like, I gotta get back to Jean. Gotta get
Yeah.
back to Jean.
And he's like, if Wolverine's dead, then nothing will stand in the way of Jean now. And I can finally be alone.
Finally, our love triangle is over. Yeah. But essentially, that's what he does. He runs back. He tries to run back to Jean, and as he's running back, he gets shot in the back by Dr. Science Lady, and he gets shot with that nanite gun that he had, and pretty much rendering his mutant powers useless.
Yeah, taking Scott's like overall power off the board, but let's be real. Cyclops, as badass as he was with his mutant powers, like that never really was Cyclops' biggest thing. I mean, he's still a threat without his mutant powers, but once you kind of surround him, and he doesn't have like a plan. Like if he's going into a situation without his powers, he could probably fare pretty well. But when he's quickly taken and reduced to just a human, he's like, oh, I have no countermeasure for this ready. I'm probably going to die right now. I don't have much time being just a human. What do I... Oh, fuck.
Oh,
fuck. Optic flat... Oh.
Nope. Not an option.
It'd be funny when she shot him with the gun. She went, optic gun! Said it in like a vengeful way. She's like menacing about optic gun.
That'd be funny. But yeah, he essentially goes, I'm sorry, Jean, and then he gets shot in the face.
Yeah, that was a touching moment. That was. I'll give that.
I did like because it cuts to the next panel. He goes, I'm sorry, Jean, I'm not going to make it. And then it cuts to the next panel and it shows Jean Grey screaming. And it shows like a shattered visor.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool like illustration. I like what Lazarus did with that.
Well, basically, you get like a cool little like representation of what the actual like death is in a way that is tasteful, but not only that, it's actually really, really well illustrated. Like beyond what I would have expect for like a Cyclops death to be. Like you could have just shot him and like shown him lying there, and it wouldn't really show too much, and you wouldn't get a general idea of what happened. And you could have like the body, you'll see his legs. Like they do that a lot in like comic deaths too. Like someone will get shot and you just see like the lower half of their body and the other person standing over them. And it's like, you feel kind of robbed sometimes where you're like, wait, well, what did they do? How did they die? Like, I don't understand what's going on. But with this, you're just like, okay, I'm not going to be confused about what happened here. Like Cyclops gets shot in the face. It broke right through.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's very illustrative. And essentially Jean Grey's just going like, they're gone, they're all gone. They're all gone. Can't sleep, clown will eat me. Can't sleep, clown will eat me.
Stuttering Stanley, stuttering Oh yeah.
And essentially the Sentinels got activated, and as they got activated, they just overwhelm her escape pod. And there's a great image at the bottom, the same panel. This is still on the same page, mind you.
Yeah. Yeah, this is all going down like just with the little maneuver they did earlier where they got in and did their mission, all this death and like fallout is all happening in one like panel. For what happened with Scott to what happened with Jean to how like Charles is picking it up and like being receptive to every little moment of it.
Yeah. And essentially the drones, it's pretty interesting. The drones are overwhelming, and this last panel is it's pretty frightening. It's like a
Yeah.
like you just see a sentinel face like come in. You're like ah, and essentially they just rip her pot apart, and that's it. That's all of them, and they're all gone. But the mission was complete.
Yeah, they it was a real nice way to wrap it all up. Like it all built up and it all paid off everything they needed to do. Like went through and actually like worked and their plan played out really well. But everyone died in crescendo after each like moment of accomplishment. So it was almost as each death was needed to move the story forward.
Yeah,
and they were all very impressive deaths. They were very, except maybe for like M, like hers was I that one we have our feelings on that one, you know. Like,
yeah,
we touched
that
on
was
it earlier, but like the rest of them all were really like wow. Like Scott's was grimy, Wolverine's was epic, you know. Nightcrawler's was like really emotional because of the sacrifice. You know, Jean's was pretty emotional because of the conversation between her and Scott, and then her not making it out alive, and then the transitioning to the end part with how Charles reacted to it. And I mean, I guess in the beginning, like those people dying off were pretty important in their own way to kind of heighten the significance, but also I wish they would have got a little more action. I guess you can only write so much in an issue, you know, like, you know, or if you break it down as like a chapter for like a trade paperback, you know, like you can only put so much. So I can forgive those moments, but then there are times where you're just like, because all these characters are well ingrained in the X-Men mythos. So like with them getting picked off like that, it's one of those crazy things where you're like, fuck, I wanted to see them fight, but you know, what are you gonna do? They got to move the story on. So I appreciate everything else that they did and how it came to this point. And overall, it was a really, really good issue.
But again, this is where Pepe Larraz really picks up and is able to tell that story in 2-3 panels, and you're just like, damn. And it is able to impact you in the same way that like a whole issue can, like you were saying, like some people would drag this out for like 6-issue, 12-issue arc, but this could be done in a page, 2 pages.
Yeah, and it's also not even just touching on the image, but the coloring is perfect because it's Garcia was the gentleman, I believe, who does the House of X and the Powers of X, like actual coloring for all of it, I believe. It's like Marte.
Marte Garcia.
Yeah, like he's the big like colorist for like the X-Men issues. Like, because they're drawn individually. Like, I believe when they get out of House of X and Powers of X, you get even more artists. Which these are all, and that's another cool thing that I'd tangent on just real quick. All these artists are more up and coming and new to the scene. Like, there's not as many established artists actually drawing the current X-Men books than I would have expected. I was surprised. I was like, a lot of these people are fresh out like the gate with like some of these stories. They're their first arcs, their first actual big like story arc. And the coloring really goes hand in hand with the imagery.
And they're knocking it out of the park. I'm liking everything doing it. Yeah, it's great.
Like in that final part with Charles, you can see the emotion on his face really well. Like the tear, like it feels wet. Like you're like, damn, that's a wet tear.
Oh yeah, that's a soggy tear right there.
Yeah, that's a soggy tear.
But yeah, so essentially after Jean Grey dies, the signal cuts out, and we're just left with everyone kind of mourning. And we see Charles kind of weeping, kind of bent over, and he says, "No more." And usually a issue ends with a quote, but there is no quote for this. We just get the words, "No more," over and over again, showing the deaths of every mutant, almost in like a tabloid fashion.
Yeah, to replace the typical infographic or like type of science spreadsheet that Hickman likes to work into these sometimes. You just get more of like, it almost feels like a propaganda kind of like spread of news articles, or you could see like a bumper on like a top of a web page or something. It's really provocative in how like he broke down the events in the news graph and how it explains itself to what the rage is behind Charles now.
Yeah, and it really gives them the motivation. But is that motivation justified knowing what happens, which we'll discuss in future episodes once we reveal a certain twist, if you will?
Yeah. Because at this point, you feel it. You're like, all right, I'm
Yeah,
behind you, Charles. Especially with this infographic, like they're reaching for like emotion tugs with this,
they
because
are. They're
they're
pulling
like
the heartstrings hard.
16.5 million mutants dead kind of like headline. You know what it reminded me of is the propaganda in like Starship Troopers, where like after they shot that giant meteor back and it like blew up Buenos Aires.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're like 500 million dead. And you just hear Charles screaming in the background, no. But yeah, it's it's really taken off. This issue was great. It really
There's
is.
sense. Yeah. And we're left with those words, no more, and that's where the issue ends. And this was intense. This was an intense one. Yeah, overall, you're just like, damn. I had to take a few moments before I moved on with my life and masturbated, but those moments before that were like, I was taken aback, for sure.
Yeah, you had to stop and like process a few deaths because with Hickman he tries to make things a little more serious, but he's tricky with his deaths. I mean, even I got choked up when he killed off Johnny Storm, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. The Fantastic Four are now just the Fantastic Three. This is impactful. But then like he worked it into that story. Spoilers, watch out. Johnny Storm wasn't dead. He was just trapped in the negative zone, and I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch. But then it worked with the story, so you're like, all right, I'll forgive you. But that was sneaky.
It
And then
worked, but they pulled on your heartstrings hard.
Yeah. Oh, that one was harder than this, and maybe I was a little prepped for it because like I had known about those stories and actually like digested what he pulled that time, because that was way more impactful then than these deaths were now. But these deaths still had that kind of like, oh shit moment. But then with Hickman, he does have that kind of trick he pulls, and you'll see that later on, and we'll dive into that in those chapters on how like this is going to be remedied or this is going to be addressed or moved forward for the story, which kind of works. It's weird, but it kind of works.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that another time.
We shall. But that covers this issue. What were your favorite moments?
Mystique getting just sucked out into the coldness of space in just one fell swoop. Like that was probably the most like reactive I got from the whole story, where I was just like, oh no, like out loud, like just like, oh no, they just killed her off. Like they addressed my question, because I led like in real time when I was going through like with that thought process where I'm like, well, is Mystique still even alive? Like, and then they just kill her, and I'm like, oh, you son.
Okay.
Well played, Hickman. You got me.
Thank you for thinking my thoughts.
Yeah, like you really like that like reacted to me in real time as I like had the thought and he wrote it out. So that had that moment, but then the most like badass moment, the most like the I guess you could say high watermark pyro moment, like in the earlier issue, like that moment in this would be Wolverine just fighting the Master Mold head into the fiery blaze of the sun. Like that easily was the best moment, hands down, of just epicness, awesomeness. Wasn't the most comical moment, Mystique won that one, but still, overall, I'll give it to Wolverine. He embodied his mythos and his image and his aura really well in that moment. Like that was how Wolverine won out. Sure. Yeah, exactly, like how you would expect him. So that played true, and that would be it. Like the rest, everything else was just, it was good. It was all good. Everything else was delightful. Those were the ones that just tasted the best out of this smorgasbord of like storytelling, But everything else didn't fail to deliver in what I would expect from it going into the story. And those other ones went above and beyond those references.
Definitely. For me, it was that moment where you just see the impact of the explosion from past episode, where you see Archangel dead, you see Husk dead, and you're just like, damn. And you're already starting at this position, and it's hopeless and hopeful at the same time, because you just see the damage that has already been done before the mission's even started. But then you have Cyclops coming in knowing that, no, the mission's going to continue. We're going to make this happen, and pushing through that. And that was pretty badass for me. Although, yeah,
Definitely.
Wolverine's moment was just so badass. It was just, it was epic.
Yeah,
It
right.
just, it was just
Stole
so
the
epic.
show. It
Yeah.
stole the show.
Just going out into the sun. Straight up.
Can't really top that. Like he kind of raised the
Right.
bar on that one, and which was impressive because, like you said, they let in strong with that kind of transition of just this is the Fallout, and that was a good Fallout transition where you're like, oh wow, like they're picking up right away with just what happened and how they're dealing with it at that moment, because you didn't see the actual impact of it like playing out as people were dying. You saw just after, like the moments after they
aftermath,
died.
yeah.
Yeah, and the right when they pick up from the aftermath, so you get that good transition that's quick, where you can hit the ground running and you don't feel like there's too much lag on the deaths, which because they could have really pulled that out. Like I said, this issue could have been way longer.
Could you imagine reading Powers of X issue number 3, being like a big Archangel fan, going like, boy, man, I'm excited to see what Archangel does in the next issue.
See, that's what I was saying about Husk. I was like, they just really like that. I'm like, what cool things is Husk gonna do? Is she gonna like pull out some crazy skin we'd never seen before? Nah, she's dead. We're moving on from that. Oh man, yeah, that would have been quite the kick to your pride if you were a big Archangel fan. And I've always enjoyed Archangel and thought he was really cool. But yeah, I know he's definitely a weird plot device in many ways, so I never get too attached to him.
Yeah.
I do like when he kind of became Apocalypse in one of the older runs. But yeah, that was funny. Just no more. Archangel's dead. I like this. Scott was like cradling him. He was like, "Oh my god, they killed Archangel." Warren,
Archangel, no.
I don't want to get a job, Warren. I need you to live. You're my bank account. I'll pay for things.
I need money. I need my allowance.
Oh, good times, man.
Oh, but that will do it for House of X issue number 4. So catch us next week for Powers of X issue number 4, where we're going to learn a little bit about Mr. Sinister, and we're going to learn a bit about Douglas Ramsey.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to learn a little bit about
more
Ascension.
Mr. Sinister.
More Mr. Sinister and some Ascension talk. More Ascension talk.
And then another Mr. Sinister.
Oh, and then another Mr. Sinister. And then potentially another Mr. Sinister. But a lot of Sinister talk.
Yeah.
Next
it's a very
week.
sinister episode.
It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Oh yeah. This one pays. That issue and these issue both paid off very well for the build up in the previous issues.
Yeah. It gives you everything you need to, like, for what's to come, essentially.
Definitely.
All right. But yeah, that's it for this week, folks. Catch us next week. See you. I need like a way to like end the show that's not just like goodbye or peace or go away. We'll get there. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out, people. But for now, go do something else because I'm gonna turn off the podcast. But
that's all, folks.
There we go. We'll leave it at that. See you later.